Now, Sarah, you're one of Riviera's cruise directors. Could you start by giving us a bit of an introduction to your role?
Absolutely. Well, Riviera we have 66 destinations worldwide, and quite a few of those are our river cruises. So that's where I work as cruise director. So my role is to be on board the ship, ready to greet guests, to work in conjunction with the captain and the hotel manager. And we'll always have a colleague who is known as our cruise concierge. So their role is kind of like tour manager. So in terms of the excursions, the concierge will go on every excursion, and I will go on as many as I can, because it's one of the delights of my job is to actually see and experience the excursions. And we also do that for quality control. We like to make sure that everything's up to our standard. So my job is to deliver the excursions and make sure that everything goes smoothly for our guests and they get the most out of their holiday.
Brilliant, thank you. And let's get into how excursions actually work. So they're all included in the price of customers' cruises, but could you share exactly what's included and how many excursions clients get?
Absolutely. So generally, we have one excursion a day. Sometimes we have two, a morning and an afternoon. And every now and again, we'll have a full day's excursion. So we'll leave first thing in the morning and we won't come back to the ship until the evening to allow us to go a little bit further afield and explore more of the general area. So every day, apart from arrival and departure day, there will be some kind of excursion for our guests that's included. So it gives guests an opportunity to really enjoy and get to know the places we visit, rather than just arriving at the port and saying, enjoy it on your own. We actually take them around and show them the best points of each destination or places close to the port where we've stopped.
Brilliant. And how big do the groups tend to be?
Well, if we have a full ship, our ships range from slightly smaller ships on the Douro, that's 125 passengers maximum, to some of our larger ships where we can take up to around about 150 guests. So on average, we will have 3 coaches. And so we will average around 40 guests per coach. And we divide the coaches carefully so that we don't have one coach with only a few people on it and one coach with lots of people, to make sure that our guests have space and they're comfortable and they're also doing the excursions with the people they want to do them with. So it might be their friends, people they're traveling with, or people they've met along the way.
Oh, brilliant. And you spoke about the different duration of them. Do they tend to be half or full day? Are those the sort of the most typical length of excursions?
The majority of our excursions are a half day, or it could be just a short time with some free time. So for example, we will very often do a city tour. We'll moor in the port and we will take our guests on a walking tour with a local guide. So we'll enjoy that. And then at the end of the tour, they have a choice of either walking back to the ship directly with the guide or staying and having a little bit of extra time and making their own way back.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And thinking about booking, do they need to book their excursions when they book their cruise, or how does that work?
Well, that's one of the beauties I think about Riviera, is that we don't have to sell the excursions. We don't have to encourage our guests to sign up because we assume that everybody wants to do everything. Okay. So there's always a place for everyone if they would like to do it. So we allow our guests to choose very often on the day whether they want to do that tour or not. So whoever's there ready to disembark the ship together to either go with a guide or go on a coach to an excursion we're driving to, then they have an opportunity. Nobody has to book or think about it ahead, which is rather nice.
Brilliant. Gosh, so flexible, isn't it? That's a real selling point. And when agents are having those sales conversations with clients, how can they use the fact that the excursions are included to highlight the value offered by a river cruise with Riviera?
Well, many of us have worked for other companies before Riviera, and especially these days, excursions are very expensive. Yeah. So it's a real choice for a lot of guests whether or not they're going to do this one that might be 80 or 100 euros, or this one that's going to be 50 or 80 euros, etc. It's a lot out of your holiday money. Whereas because they're all included, you actually don't have to choose until you decide, actually, we're in Avignon, I've been here before, I want to go off and just do my own thing, there's a museum I want to look at, or I'm going to go with the guide and enjoy the walking tour, which will get me entrance into the Pope's Palace and the bridge. So that's what's so nice about it, is that the fact it really gives guests the chance to choose and not be held back by the finances or planning how much money to bring or all that kind of thing. They can actually choose to have their holiday how they want it.
Brilliant, thank you. And is there anything else to highlight to agents that makes your excursions different, that they can use as a unique selling point when they're chatting to clients?
Well, I believe that we work with some very good local suppliers, and they provide us with local guides. And I believe that our local guides are among the best I've ever worked with. They're really knowledgeable. They're very often from that exact place. So they're very passionate about their hometown. So they want to show you the little extra secrets, the little, the things, and show you and say, that street's got lots of shops in it, but a better one is this one, that kind of thing. It's that, I think that because we employ guides, some of whom we've used for years, who are very knowledgeable, and some of them have two roles. For example, on some of our cruises, there might be a wine tasting as part of an excursion. And so I'm thinking of the Rhone, for example, our Rhone cruise, where we take people to Beaune and we take them wine tasting. It's our actual local guides who do the explanation. Because when you start talking to them, they'll say, well, my father has a vineyard, or my uncle has a vineyard, I grew up with this. So they're not just knowledgeable about their town, they're knowledgeable about other subjects around the town, which makes it a very personal experience, I think, for our guests. And the other thing that I would add is that with a lot of other cruise companies, they cater for various different nationalities. So all of the presentations, a lot of the tours are in more than one language, or only in German, or only in French, etc. Whereas everything we do is in English. So it means that our guides, they might be French or German or Portuguese, but they all speak a very high level of English. So our guests know that they are going to have everything explained to them very carefully.
Brilliant, thank you. And how does Riviera go around sort of choosing its excursions and curating the range that it offers?
Well, it's a very long period of experience. We're celebrating 40 years of Riviera this year. So our cruises are carefully planned. They're planned by the office team. Sometimes they get cruise directors or tour managers to go into a place and suggest something. Sometimes it's something they've heard about along, from other tour operators or from and they say, this is a really good excursion, shall we try this, that kind of thing. So it's a mixture of Riviera staff in the office and Riviera staff who are, if you like, out on the line. And we combine our experiences and our information and choose tours that we think are going to really work well for our particular style of guests, if you like.
Brilliant, thank you. And do excursions ever get cancelled, and what happens if that is necessary?
Once in a blue moon, yes. I've just done a trip where we've experienced some high water, because this happens on the rivers sometimes. And when there's been a huge amount of rainfall, then sometimes the river gets a little bit too high, which means that either our ships or anybody's ships can't get under certain very low bridges, or sometimes it means that the lock system is not safe to go through. So we won't be allowed to sail in that direction for that particular excursion. So we always go automatically into our plan B mode, which in conjunction with the office, we will discuss what are our other options, because when these things happen, generally it's happened before. And so we often have, okay, well, we can't do that, but we can do this. So if we're going to take people on a quinta on the Douro Valley, a beautiful winery, to have lunch, etc., there, then we say, well, that one's going to be too far away, but we could actually do this one. We've used it before. So it's not always easy to ask for lunch at short notice for 130 people, but our team are very, very good at it. And again, because we have this local connections, we work very hard. Our mission is always to give our guests everything they've booked. And if for some reason that's not possible due to outside influences such as weather, then to give them an alternative, which is just as enjoyable, and sometimes it's also adding something extra. So we really try very, very hard to do that.
Fabulous, thank you. And for clients who have concerns around mobility, how can agents see the fitness level that's required for each excursion and any information they might need, such as whether there are lots of steps, for example?
Well, first of all, in terms of at the booking stage, I think it's really important that agents understand clearly the difference between river cruises and sea cruises.
Yeah.
Because ocean cruises, as we call them, ocean cruises, the ships are much bigger. And so generally there are big ramps coming off, the ships, etc. So, but rivers, by the nature of, how they are always lower than the land. So there will always be steps up. A few ports will have ramps because if they're a major port and they have a lot of river cruises, and it also depends on the level of the water. So, for example, some ships, sometimes we dock and we'll have a little ramp and you just go straight off. Other times we might be double moored because all of our destinations are very popular. So we try not to be, of course, but we can't avoid that, especially in high season. So you might have to go up steps to cross another ship to then go down, or you might have to go down some steps to get onto the shore side or go up some steps. So I think it's important to assume that there will always be some steps. And I'm not talking about 100 steps, I'm talking about 10, 12, something like that. But if anybody really struggles with steps, then they need to consider that. But the other thing about mobility is that a lot of our tours, when you look at the brochure online, it will say we will go on a walking tour with our guide, etc., etc. So our guests have a choice. We make sure they know. So part of my job is to do a presentation before every excursion. So I will either do it the night before or the morning before, an afternoon one, etc. So I will, and my colleagues, we will always explain the excursion and explain how much walking there is, what the sort of distance is, whether there's cobblestones, whether there's, inclines, that kind of thing. Yeah. We will explain that. So again, guests can say, oh, I don't think that's for me. I think I'm going to just relax on board and save my energy for tomorrow or this afternoon or whatever it is. So we'll always guide them on board. But if somebody has major mobility issues, then I think they really need to discuss that with the agent. And for agents to get a lot more information, on many of our cruises, we have somebody like me has done a mobility report for the office. So the best thing to do with any concerns whatsoever is to actually ask Riviera Travel UK to explain an excursion, because we're very clear, because we want to set our guests' expectations at the right level so that they're delighted, not disappointed. So it's very important that they're aware that ocean cruises is a very different product, and river cruises, they are slightly more active, but you can set that level of activity how you want to do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. And you mentioned checking the brochure or online. Is that the best port of call if agents do want to find out more information about a particular shore excursion?
I would certainly do that first of all, because that's what cruise directors do as our first thing. If we're doing a new cruise, if we're doing a cruise that's new to us or a new excursion, the first thing that I or my colleagues will do way before we go actually on the cruise is to look and see what are we telling our clients.
Yeah.
Then from that, we'll start doing our research, and then we'll start talking to other people. So the office will always give us, Riviera office will always give us some, tour notes and logistics and things like that. But it's a good it's a good starting point, because we say on day one, we will set off with, etc. So it's a good way for both the guests and agents to see. And if they have any queries, I would say to always ask. Always contact Riviera head office and make sure that they're clear.
Wonderful, thank you. And thinking about the other types of questions that clients may have, you've got your talented team of tour managers and cruise directors, as well as your team on the ground. So tell us a bit more about the support that they provide to clients on the shore excursions, and the types of questions that they typically help clients with.
Okay, well, on every excursion, if we have a walking group or a coach tour, we will always have somebody, a local guide, who will be talking on the mic. Or it might be, in some places where we just have free time, it might be me and my colleague. So we will always have explained everything before we've left. And then on the way, we'll say, oh, have a look over there, have a look over there. And when we get to the town, then we will tell them, where we'll be.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I've just done a Sintra tour, which is part of an extension, the Lisbon extension on a Douro cruise. So it's a lovely few days you can tack on to a Douro cruise. And one of our tours is all free time, because it's the whole point of this beautiful place is to explore it. It's all little nooks and crannies and lovely cafes and lots of things to see. So I and my colleagues, we'll say, okay, we're going to take you to the palace. We'll take you into the palace. We have your tickets ready. Spend as little or as much time as you'd like in there. And then the rest of the time is free time. I'm going to be in that cafe over there with the blue awning, sitting on the terrace, doing some work if anybody wants me. So they'll know where to find us. That's the thing. So I think that's possibly the difference between us and a lot of people. We tend to look after people. So we always have guides on the excursions. We will also send our cruise concierge. And sometimes the cruise director will go along too, for the reasons I said earlier, because we actually want to. And it gives us an opportunity to get to know our guests even more. So where we can, we will. Sometimes we get, stuck with our paperwork on board. But, or if a lot of guests have opted out of an excursion, which is very rare, then I would make sure I stayed on board in case they need anything while they're there. You asked me about the questions they come up with, guests ask us. So there's lots of different ones. But for example, I often get asked, oh, I have, my daughter lives in a port we're going to go to. I'd love to meet up with her and husband for lunch. Will that work? So I'll tell them the time of our excursion. I'll tell them when we're going to be in the port and help them create that meeting if that's what they'd like to do. We have lots of practical things, like people want an ATM machine, or they want a pharmacy, or, these kinds, or they're looking for a particular souvenir. So either myself, my colleague, the concierge, or the tour escorts will help them with that kind of thing. And sometimes if we can, we'll go along and help translate for them, that kind of thing.
Lovely, thank you. And if clients do want to explore independently, what advice do the team provide on board?
Well, I mentioned we do presentations. So we do some PowerPoint slides. A lot of those we create ourselves. Riviera's created a base one, and we add our own photographs and our own little tips and tricks. It's part of, the cruise director's job to make the presentations interesting and give guests a real feeling. And in the room, in the cabin, we provide something called a map pack. So on every cruise, you get a map pack. And in the map pack, we have, I'm going to hold this up. Can you see that?
Oh, brilliant.
So that's a map of Arles, for example. And then this one is, I've just got two to show you, but you know, they're just two I grabbed. But
yeah, really
in
handy.
most places, we will provide something like this for the guests, and it's their own copy. So it's a souvenir, but we encourage them, we tell them in the presentations, bring that one with you, because on this map, don't know if you can see, it's difficult on camera, but there are some red stars. So each star is what I call the highlights of each place. So it'll say, you know, number 1 is the Papal Palace in Avignon. Number, you know, 4 is the Petit Palais Museum, these kinds of things. So it's basically, it's, if you like, the town's greatest hits. So it's in any town or city, we'll provide something like that. It's a simplified map of the area where they are going to have free time. So it makes it very easy for them to go from A to B, orientate themselves. And we also mark on here little anchors, and that tells you where the ship is, or it'll be along that line. So if it's somewhere like Avignon, for example, and many of our ports, and they want to do their own thing and walk back later, they know what time they've got to be on board, because we've made that very clear, because of sailing time, and they can find the ship, or they can show it to a taxi driver if they want to. So, and on our daily programs and on a lot of our ships, boarding cards, so when you get off a ship, you get another one, is the telephone number of ship reception. So if guests ever, which is very rare, but if they ever got lost or something happened and they needed, they can call the ship. Somebody will answer the telephone, somebody will find me, and I will find them. So it's kind of a backup, and it's on our, that number is also on our daily program. So we encourage people to take that with them too. It's just one piece of paper, tells them everything that's happening and the ship's telephone number.
Lovely, nice and easy. Fantastic, thank you. And now we're going to move on to the Q&A section. So please pop any questions that you have about Riviera Shore excursions in the question. Hi, so for the Q&A part of this session, we're joined again by Will. Hi, Will.
Hello.
I know you've gone into the chat from the previous session and answered the outstanding questions there. Thank you for that. So for anyone that did ask a question, do pop that later to see Will's answer. And if you've got any questions about shore excursions, I know we've got a couple coming in already, do pop them in the chat box. Anything in general about shore excursions or a specific excursion. So to start with, Will, Tracy has asked if there's a chance that clients wouldn't get their first preference of excursion and if they can be oversubscribed. But they do always have a place reserved, don't they, on every shore excursion?
That's right. Yeah, if we say there's an included excursion, that means that we will make sure you get on it. We always book enough spaces to make sure that, you know, everyone can go on it, and we don't try and guess, you know, what sort of uptake we might get. So if it's an included excursion, you can be on it.
Brilliant, lovely. And Kieran, I know you answered it in the chat, but Kieran said, I just wanted to make sure I heard this right. Are excursions included in the cruise price? So just to really hammer home that message, they are all included, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah. We include virtually an excursion in every single port. Occasionally we offer, where there's something a little bit more niche, we offer it as an optional extra, but we only offer it as an optional because we think it may be a bit niche to include for everyone. But yeah, pretty much every single day included excursion in the cruise price.
Brilliant, lovely. And Jenny's asked if you do adults wine tasting in Rudensheim. Apologies, I probably pronounced that incorrectly, but
about as good as my pronunciation. No, we don't actually do that one. There's a lot of places like that in Rudensheim, and so we always make sure people have got time to choose what they want to do. And so although we don't go to that very specific winery, there's plenty of wineries to choose from, so guests will have time to visit it if that's what they want to do.
Lovely. And tell us a bit more about food and drink, because when does that tend to be included in excursions?
So because we include all of the food and drink on board, basically, it means that rarely do we have meals off the ship. But where the excursion calls for it, that there may be little treats, whether it be a glass of schnapps or whatever it may be, just to really enhance the excursion experience. But generally speaking, with a couple of small exceptions, meals are always taken on board the ship.
Lovely. And then not necessarily a short excursion question, but let's cover this one off now. Tracy's asked if there's a facility to exchange money on board.
There's not, but in the vast majority of cases, we're using euros, and so most people are bringing enough euros, and it's so easy to pull euros out of ATMs these days that our guests find that absolutely fine, and it's never really come up as an issue. So it's very easy to do these days.
Lovely. And then Chrissy said, do you ever offer FAM or last minute cruise places that you haven't filled to agents at a good price?
So I wouldn't use the phrase last minute, because we try and be a little bit more ahead of the game than that. So where we see that we may have an opportunity to offer FAM places, we try and do that a bit further out to make sure, because in our experience, you've all got busy jobs. And so, getting a week off, with 6 days notice, I know it's not easy. And so that's why we try and do things a little bit further out to make sure that if we have got opportunities, you've got time to plan it and get your staffing in place in your branches, etc.
Brilliant. Lovely. And can you tell us what are some of your most popular shore excursions? Are there any sort of must-try ones that agents should know about?
Oh, I mean, it depends who you ask. There's so many great ones. My favourites tend to be the cities. I'm a big fan of cities myself. So Lyon on our Rhone cruise is a big favourite of mine. Porto on the Douro, absolutely beautiful city. Budapest in Hungary is absolutely fascinating. I love it there. And then aside from that, I'm quite partial to a scenic excursion as well. So something like the Ardèche Gorge in France is a really nice one. So the great thing about our excursion program is we try and make sure there's variety throughout. So whether you're a city person or you like beautiful architecture or you're really interested in sort of cathedrals and churches and that sort of thing, we've got something in there for everyone. So as the cruise goes on, hopefully you'll find the thing that's perfect for you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. And are there any exciting new excursions for 2024 that you can tell us about, or even any on the horizon for 25?
Oh, well, there's a big question. So for 2024, we've got a series of new longer cruises coming out on sale. So we've got 10-night cruises available on the Rhone, the Rhine, the Moselle and the Seine. And that gives us more opportunity to visit some of the smaller ports of call that we wouldn't be able to visit on the 7-night cruises. I think one thing that's got a lot of people excited is the Camargue on our Rhone cruise. It's where you get to see flamingos and horses and some incredible nature on that one. So I think that's the one that has got most people talking so far.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And I know you visit a lot of cultural and historical landmarks. How do you elevate those experiences from something that a customer could do by themselves?
I think the first thing, which is something that Sarah touched on earlier, is it's all about having the right local to really bring something to life. And we spend a lot of time making sure that we work with the right people to make sure that they are delivering on that. And because it's one thing to read off a bunch of facts, but that's inspiring no one. And so we choose our guides because they've got personality. They're not all exactly the same. They don't have to conform. All we ask is that they get our customers excited about the places that they're showing them around. And so that for me is the most important thing in creating an experience, because these people, they're already excited about these places and they're excited to share it with our guests. And so making sure we have that big stable of locals who can really bring it to life and make you think that their city or attraction is the thing that is the most exciting about the cruise. It's almost like a little bit of a competition for them.
Oh, fabulous. And do you have any advice on what clients should wear or anything that they should bring with them on excursions that agents can share with clients?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing for me is footwear. It's, what a pair of Skechers is absolutely fantastic. If you go on one of our cruises, you'll see plenty of Skechers, and they're lightweight, they're comfortable, they're durable. But anything like that, a nice lightweight trainer, because there's cobbled streets, there's sometimes gravelly paths. You've got lots of different things, and you're going to be on your feet a fair bit over the course of a week. You'd be surprised how many kilometres you manage to stack up. So making sure you've got the right footwear is absolute priority. And other than that, dressing sensibly and in layers is always good. So if you get warm, take a layer off. If you get cold, pop a layer on. Rather than sort of trying to second guess what the weather's going to be, because it's a fool's game, as we know.
Brilliant. Lovely. I think we've probably got time for one last question. So I'd like to hear what your favourite excursion is that you've ever done on a Riviera cruise. What's right at the top of your list?
I think the first time that I went to Salzburg was really quite eye-opening. It's a place that I'd heard so much about, and obviously you see the Sound of Music, and of course it's the birthplace of Mozart, and so yeah, when I went there for the first time, it's very dramatically situated, which I've never really appreciated, with the mountains behind it, and yeah, it felt like being in a TV show or something like that. So yeah, really enjoyed my trip to Salzburg the first time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Will. And thank you everyone for watching. We've got some lovely comments there. Tracy saying she sells quite a lot of river cruises, but I've never been on one myself. I think I'm missing out.
Tracy, come on.
You need to get on board, Tracy. And Jenny and Carol also saying thank you very much. So thank you, Will, and thank you everyone for watching. And we hope you've enjoyed learning lots about Riviera shore excursions.